Now let's take a look at the activities and the purpose behind them. So sometimes it can be quite confusing how many activities should be created and when is the right time to create a new activity. So basically the rule of thumb here is to create a new activity each time there's a new task for a user. So whenever a user wants to do a single goal in mind, so then you should create a new activity. So maybe when you are viewing a stock list, a portfolio list, so that's one activity. And when you're trying to add a new item to the portfolio, that could be another activity. And basically, if you follow this rule of thumb, it's gonna lead to a nice, neat design that's simple to manage. So now let's take a look at the code. So let's say we're gonna create a few activities, and the first one is going to be, let's select empty activity. And let's say the first one is going to be stock portfolio list activity. Let's create that. And now let's create another activity for, let's say, add new stock item, let's say. And basically you're creating activities for each goal that the user might want to achieve, for each one activity for one task. Now let's take a look at the fragments and how they can be composed with activities. So basically a fragment is something like a small container for user interface. It can contain multiple user interface elements, but in the end it must be hosted inside an activity. And one activity can host multiple fragments. So it's like fragment is like compositional element to group different user interface elements in one unit. Learning to compose multiple fragments. In the end, this is really just important when you're working across multiple device types. So if you're just sticking to phone devices, you might as well skip that. But again, it's a quite important concept. So let's take a look. So here I have already pre-created a few fragments and activities. So we have stock portfolio list activity that hosts our portfolio view of the items that we have already in the portfolio. And then we have a mock activity for adding new stock. So now let's take a look at the portfolio list activity. So basically what happens here is that we take our layout. Let's take a look at this layout in the text. And well, we can see that it's a simple linear layout and it has two frame layouts inside. And what's important here that we have these two containers, fragment container 1 and 2. So basically what's going to happen next is that we're going to replace those frame layouts with fragments. So that's how you add fragments inside activities. Well, that's the most robust way. So you get your support fragment manager, begin transaction, replace one fragment, and then you begin another transaction and add the list fragment. So the first one, let's call the fragment summary fragment. Maybe it will contain some kind of summary about our portfolio. The next one is the list of our stocks. So this could be, we can modify this. We could just take this, put it here, make it a single transaction. It looks even neater. And now let's move on to the actual fragments. So the summary fragment, it's really simple. It doesn't contain anything, no logic yet. And it has just this single layout that gets created. So inside this layout, that's the layout for the fragment. It will just create a text view with a text summary. Something similar happens with the portfolio list fragment. Again, it's a very simple fragment just to show as an example. And layout here, let's say it's a bit more complex. Let's say it has two items. So what's going to happen is that these two layouts, fragment stock list and stock summary, is basically going to be inserted instead of these inside of fragment container 1 and 2. The next video we're going to take it one notch further and we're going to explore how model view model could help in developing user interfaces.